Every day, millions of people use different means of transport to get to work, university or school. In Mannheim, the number of commuters traveling to the city is just under 30% of its population. In contrast, about 53,000 people commute daily from Mannheim to other cities. Mobility shapes our everyday lives.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Due to our interconnected, globalized world, the mobility sector is essential for us. However, this also creates the demand to make it as sustainable as possible in order to keep the impact on the environment as low as possible. But what does sustainability actually mean? Professor Dr. Laura Marie Edinger-Schons from the University of Mannheim has an answer.
Being sustainable as an individual or an organization to me really means that you accept that there are limited resources on our planet, there are planetary boundaries, and that you live in a sustainable way accepting these planetary boundaries as the confines of your consumption behaviors or also your production behaviors as companies.
According to recent data from the European Union, the transport sector accounts for almost 25% of European greenhouse gas emissions. This makes it the main driver of air pollution in cities.
And if we look at our biggest problem at the moment, the climate crisis, mobility has of course a large impact due to the emissions that it is causing. At the moment we are still relying in many areas on fossil fuels.
But how can the share of greenhouse gases in cities that cause mobility be reduced in the future? What is the most climate-friendly means of transport?
I think the bicycles.
I think a bike.
Going by bike, das Fahrrad.
A study by the Federal Environment Agency reveals the greenhouse gas emissions that result from inner-city means of transport. The following numbers were found for a distance of 10 kilometers. As you see, the bicycle, which produces no emissions at all, is far ahead of the others and is the most climate-friendly means of transport. For this reason, we would now like to take a closer look at the role of the bicycle in our everyday lives. Where would it be more fitting than at the cradle of the German bicycle? In Mannheim. The history of the bicycle begins with the Mannheimer inventor Karl Dreis. In 1816, a volcanic eruption in Indonesia caused a dramatic crop failure. Mannheim was short on oats. The horses couldn't be fed anymore and had to be slaughtered. Therefore, the need for an alternative means of transport was great, and as we know, necessity is the mother of invention. At this point, Karl Dreis comes to the fore and invents the dandy horse. The first mechanical means of individual transport was born. With Mannheim as the birthplace of the bicycle, one could think that Mannheim would also be a prime example of a bicycle-friendly and sustainable city. But is that the case? As a university city, the university is the central institution in Mannheim. This also goes hand in hand with the educational institution's function as a role model for the people of Mannheim. The university, therefore, also has a responsibility to track its carbon footprint.
As a university, we are currently also determining our CO2 footprint. And for us, this is really a journey because it means collecting data from all different areas of the university. And one thing we did is, right at the start, we conducted a survey of employees and students to understand what emissions they are causing. Interestingly, the biggest footprint for us as a university is really the mobility.
The data from the study showed that the mobility of the employees of the University of Mannheim accounts for over 70% of the educational institution's carbon footprint.
Mobility is our biggest problem with regard to our emission reduction strategy. And in this area, we of course have certain levers to change behavior.
For this purpose, among other things, a working group was formed at the university that deals precisely with the topic of how behavior can be changed. In addition to the university as an institution, The city of Mannheim as a whole also has a special responsibility towards its citizens. The city has also recognized that initiatives for rethink are urgently needed. A first step of the city of Mannheim towards a sustainable and progressive bicycle city is the Masterplan Mobility 2035. What's behind?
Der hat halt die Aufgabe, ein bisschen weiter in die Zukunft zu schauen. Also wir haben jetzt diesen Horizont 35 gewählt. Das Besondere ist eigentlich, dass man integriert alle Verkehrsarten betrachtet. Autoverkehr, Rad, Fuß, ÖV, aber auch Wirtschaftsverkehr, zumindest auf lokaler Ebene sollte dabei, also nicht nur der Personenverkehr.
Actually, there are many arguments in favor of cycling in the city. Besides the emission advantage, the flexible usability also speaks for the bicycle. In addition, cycling is good for the body and mind, as well as the wallet. However, although more than a third of the citizens would describe themselves as cycling enthusiasts, only 17% of the distances in Mannheim are covered by bicycle. The car is topped with 44%. But why do so few people use the bicycle when it is so environmentally friendly?
Also wir erklären es natürlich auch mit dem Thema, wir haben einen relativ guten ÖPNV, aber wir erklären es uns auch so, dass man in Mannheim natürlich auch schon noch unheimlich gut Auto fahren kann.
Academic work shows that safety perception in particular is another significant moderator.
I would say on city level in Mannheim, the biggest issue is safety, and this is something that the city has to think about. How can we make the city safe for bicycles?
The fear of cyclists is not unjustified. In 2021, a total of 10,980 cyclists were involved in accidents in the state of Baden-Württemberg.
Es geht nicht nur um die tatsächliche Sicherheit, sondern auch um diese gefühlte Sicherheit, wenn man wirklich das Rad häufiger nutzen soll.
In addition to the safety risk, theft also plays a role in making people less likely to resort to the bike. In Mannheim, there were 1,526 reported thefts in 2021. The number of unreported cases is probably much higher. The development of projects to promote cycling picked up speed in Mannheim in the 1990s. Bike lanes were built in the city center, and the first bicycle parking garage in Baden-Württemberg was opened. In 2010, the city then adopted the 21-point program, which put cycling back on the political agenda. In this course, bicycle lanes have been connected to the city's main roads in several places. Also, the city's first pure bicycle street was opened in spring 2022. This is intended to further strengthen cycling in the city. What else is planned for the future to make cycling even more attractive? First, let's turn to the University of Mannheim again.
In my role as Vice President Sustainability, I also of course have the activity of looking at the university as a whole and see how can we, for example, make changes to our infrastructure. If you talk about bicycles, now when we build new buildings, we of course think about people who use bicycles in a better way than in the past, right? And we build the infrastructure in a way that you have, for example, safe places to store your bicycle, but for example also that when you come to campus that maybe in the future we will have buildings with showers, right?
And what about a city?
Im Moment sind wir an der Augusta-Anlage, die wird jetzt gerade umgebaut und bekommt eine Radverkehrsanlage. Aber es gibt auch natürlich vielleicht kleine Dinge. Jetzt beginnt wieder das Stadtradeln, wo man seine Kilometer zählen kann, also wo man natürlich einfach das Radfahren in die Köpfe der Leute bringen möchte und alle zum Radfahren bewegen möchte.
In addition to large and small projects, representatives of various Mannheim institutions meet at the so-called Rundertisch Radverkehr to discuss cycling issues. The university is also represented here. Now, the big question is, will Mannheim become a model city for cycling?
Ja, wir arbeiten.
There's still a lot to do, but we are pretty sure that all the efforts will help to shape the mobility in Mannheim in a sustainable way. So let's stay on the move.